When an emotion finds its thought and the thought finds its words, poetry is created. Hi, I'm John Recrado, 20 years old from Poblacion, Talibon, Bohol. In this video, I'm going to discuss about the elements of poetry. But before anything else, let us first look back on what poetry means. What is poetry? Poetry is a type of literature that uses sounds, rhythms, and meaning of words to describe the word in striking and imaginative ways. It is based on the interplay of words and rhythm. It often employs rhyme and meter, or a set of rules governing the number and arrangement of syllables in each line. It uses imagery or figures of speech to express feelings or create a mental picture of idea. Moreover, poetry is the art of expressing oneself in verse. Now, let us proceed to the elements of poetry. Throughout my research, I gathered 9 elements of poetry. We have line, stanza, rhyme and rhyme scheme, rhythm, meter, mode, tone, imagery, and figures of speech. First on the list, we have line. Line is a single line in a poem. It is often organized into stanza. Poetry is divided into lines or groups of words. We can see an example of poem shown on your screen titled Chartless by Emily Dickinson. This poem has 8 lines organized into 2 stanzas. Second element of poetry is stanza. Stanza is a grouping of lines set off by a space which usually has a pattern of meter and rhyme. There are also types of stanza based in the number of lines it composed. We have couplet with 2 lines, triplet with 3 lines, quatrain with 4 lines, quinrain with 5 lines, sestet with 6 lines, and octet with 8 lines. Each stanza develops and emphasizes one idea. First and Last by David McCord is an example of poem comprises with 4 stanza in couplets. Third element is rhyme and rhyme scheme. Words rhyme if they sound alike. Rhyme is the repetition of identical or similar concluding syllables in different words, most often at the end of lines. Poets use rhyme to add musical sound to their poems. Rhyme scheme is the pattern of rhymes in poem. Rhyme schemes are mapped out by noting patterns of rhyme with small letters. The first rhyme sound is designate A, the second becomes B, and the third C, and so on. Example of rhyme scheme is AB, AB. There are also types of rhyme that we can determine in a poem. Types of rhyme includes alliteration, consonants, and assonance. Alliteration is a repetition of the initial consonant sound. Example: she shells seashells by the seashore. The initial sound that we can hear from this line is the sh and s sound. Next is consonants. Consonants is the repetition of the intermediate or final consonant sound. Example: tick-tock, flip-flop, singing, longing. The final sound here is the KH sound from tick-tock, P sound from flip-flop, and N sound from the singing and longing. Assonance. Assonance is the repetition of vowel sound. Example here, the mellow wedding bell, golden bells, what a word of happiness, their harmony foretells. The vowel sound here is E sound. Now, Let us move on to the fourth element of poetry, which is rhythm. Rhythm is pattern of beat or a series of stressed and unstressed syllables in poem. Poets create rhythm by using words in which parts are emphasized or not emphasized. Now, let us take a look on an example of poem entitled Windy Night by Robert Louis Stevenson. We can observe a colored symbol where you're supposed to add the stress upon reading. The next element is meter. Meter is the measure of a line in a poetry. It is the pattern of rhythm. Moreover, foot is the basic unit of meter. It is the grouping of two or more syllables. There are also different types of metric foot. We have iambic, trichoic, dactylic, anapistic, spondic, and ferric. Iambic foot consists of an accented syllable followed by accented. It can be heard in such words as because, hello, Elaine. Trochaic foot consists of an accented syllable followed by an accented. These are trochaic words: answer, Tuesday, Albert. Dactylic foot consists of an accented syllable followed by two unaccented syllables. You can hear the dactylic beat in these words: beautiful, silently, Saturday. Anapistic foot consists of two unaccented syllables followed by an accented syllable. These are words cavalier, tambourine, Marianne. Spondic foot consists of two accented syllables. Lastly, ferric foot consists of two unaccented syllables. The sixth element is mood. Mood refers to the feeling that a poem creates in a reader. It can be positive or negative. Mood can be made with the length of the sentences, chosen words, and word sounds. Based on the element from a poem by Myra Livingston titled Poor, the line colored with blue were short words and lines that create a serious mood. Cold, lonely, alone, old, poor, and tired are words that create the feeling of sadness. Now let's proceed to tone. Tone is the attitude a writer takes towards the subject or audience of the poem, which means that tone conveys the speaker's implied attitude towards the poem's subject. In the example, The Crocodile, the subject of the poem are crocodiles. The writer's attitude towards crocodile is that they are dangerous. The eighth element is the imagery. Imagery is a language that appeals to the five senses, which can be referred to as word pictures. This helps the reader to experience familiar things in a fresh way using the senses. Imagery helps poets convey what they hear, see, smell, taste, or touch. From the example given, thing with slimy face and oily hair are image words or the word pictures, which are examples of imagery. Lastly, figures of speech. Figures of speech is a mode of expression in which words are used out of their literal meaning or out of their ordinary use in order to add beauty or emotional intensity by comparing or identifying one thing with another that has a meaning familiar to the reader. Figure of speech includes simile, metaphor, personification, onomatopoeia, and hyperbole. First, simile. Simile is a figure of speech in which two fundamentally unlike things are explicitly, usually in a phrase introduced by like or as. Example: good coffee is like friendship, rich and warm and strong. Next, life. Life is rather like opening a tin of sardines. We're all of us looking for the key. When Lee Million finished the apple, he smacked his lips together like a pair of cymbals. Next is metaphor. Metaphor is the figures of speech in which an implied comparison is made between two unlike things that actually have something in common. Example: between the Lower East Side tenements, the sky is a snotty handkerchief. The streets were a furnace, the sun an executioner. Next to metaphor is personification. Personification is a figure of speech in which an inanimate object or abstraction is given human qualities or abilities. Example: the wind stood up and gave a shout. He whistled in his fingers and kicked the withered leaves about, and thumped the branches with his hand, and said he'd kill and kill and kill. And so he will, and so he will. The Wind by James Stephens. Needless to say that the wind here is the inanimate object that has given human abilities like the wind stood up and gave a shout and the likes. Next is onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia is the use of words that imitate the sounds associated with the object or actions they refer to. Example: chug chug chug, puff puff puff, ding dong ding dong. The little train rumbled over the tracks. Another example is bring. An alarm clock clanged in the dark and silent room. I'm getting married in the morning. Ding dong, the bells are gonna chime. Lastly, hyperbole. Hyperbole is a figure of speech in which exaggeration is used for emphasis or effect. An extravagant statement. Example: I had to walk 15 miles to school in the snow uphill. You could have knocked me over with a feather. So those are the 9 elements of poetry. That would be all. Thank you.